Hello, my name is Stephanie Toman and I run the ICDL programme. Today I'm going to do a lecture, an online lecture for you on Excel. So it's module 4 of the ICDL modules that you need to do to complete your ICDL Foundation. So in this module, what I'll be demonstrating will be some of these areas here, getting started, workbooks, worksheets, getting around them, some simple formula, functions, formatting, editing, and some charts will be part of that. So we're going to take you through that using a workbook that's already been created. So in order to do this, you're going to need to go to Aula and pick up the Excel lecture materials. So they'll be in the materials in the lecture area. And what you should see in there is an Excel demo, which is the one we're going to use today for the lecture. But also in there's a link demo chart to bring in, and there's a worked Excel demo workbook. So if you go into here after we've done this, this is actually showing you where things have actually been worked, and you can go and remind yourself a revision, etc., of what covered in the demonstration. So you can see functions later, and in here you can see the formula that we're using. So it's got the same worksheets as what I'm going to go through, but it's actually got them being worked, so you can see, and then there's some help and hints on there, and you can see that one's already been done. And then there's a formula practice, bring that down, and then there's a worked formula practice, so you can see what it is that's being done behind the scenes. So you can look at all of that after the demonstration. Okay, so that's there for you anyway. So if we open up, or if you're going to do this and just watch it, if not, and you want to try it yourself, I'm opening up the Excel demo, this workbook here. Okay, I'm not going to update the links. It's come up quite small. That's because I want you to see the overview of the window. So along the bottom, when it opens, you'll see lots of sheets that cover different areas of the syllabus. So it's got your window here, your worksheets window. We're going to look at a couple of things there. All of the syllabus items that you expected to know will all be on each of the sheets. So when you come up to one, you'll see this is what's being worked through and what's expected of you in the exam. So it's a good way of reviewing and revising when it comes to looking at that. And you can see all these things here. So these are all the areas that I'm going to demonstrate in this video. So firstly, there's some obvious areas that we've got: the quick access toolbar, you know your file tab, you know your ribbon. There's some things you may not know in Excel, and that's for example, the insert function. So the insert function is a good help function. So if you're clicked in a cell and you're not sure about a function that you're looking for, you could put something in, count cells and go to, and then it will come up with some instances where it will help you. And you can see what they do. If you click on them, they'll give you an idea of what they do. Okay, and then it'll allow you to help you to do it, and we'll have a look at that. You've got the help feature, which is now just up here in the live one, and it's no longer a question mark. So you type in something in the exam, they might ask you to type in about a feature and then go to it and get help. Your title bar is quite obvious for a lot of you, but launches may not be so obvious. So launches in the corner of each of the groups on the ribbon will take you to the back end. Some have got them and some haven't. And you'll all know the font launcher when I bring it up. It's an old one where you can look right across the group of formatting within Excel. Okay. So another area that's important as well is if I put in a formula. So if I click to, if I do B4 minus B5 and I put it in a cell, it shows in the formula bar. So that's what this area here is, and it's next to the insert function that we looked at. The way it's set up is columns going down in letters and rows going across in numbers. And the intersecting cell A1 is going to be the A lit up and the 1. If I went to C7, the 7's lit up and the C's lit up. So it's built in with grids that have columns as letters and rows have numbers. Okay, so let's move on. A lot of you will already know that, I'm sure. And then you've got, like I said, your active cell. That's the one I was clicking in, which you can also see up here. So if I clicked in there, you can see that I've clicked in that one there. And we talked about the formula bar, column headings, row borders, and sheet names, the thing at the bottom, which is also very important. And you'll see that we can right click and do lots of things with sheets. One of the areas in the exam that you need to be aware of is the area in the File tab. So it's called Preferences or it's called Username Options. And there's a Save feature as well where you can change the file location. So if we go into the File tab and then Options, this is much clearer here. I've done a print shot of it there. But in the General tab, the default tab, you've got something called a username. In the exam, they may ask you to change that username and they'll give you what they want you to pop in. And you just change it there. If they talk about changing the default local file location, in other words, changing where your files automatically save to when you do a save as, then you would be changing it here. And a good thing to do is overtype the areas you're changing, not just delete it all out, type the whole thing because errors can happen quite easily in an exam, an online exam. Okay, so just be careful how you do things. That's quite straightforward. The rest of the stuff, like I said, is easy enough, scroll bars, etc. So let's move on. Okay, you can see here entering labels, things like that. I'm not going to go doing that. It's pretty obvious. If you've got a label, it sits to the left. If you've got data, it sits to the right. And there's common examples there. However, what you can do with labels, if you do two, as in week 1, week 2, and you autofill this little cross in the corner here, right in that corner, so a little square, hover on it and drag and drop, and it will then complete that fill because it almost knows what the sequence is and it will do it for you. It's the same with these. If you highlight the first 2, it will complete the sequence. If you only highlight the first 1 and drag with the autofill, hard to get hold of it because this little picture, I'm going to shove that out of the way. So if I went there and did that, I'd just complete the 2 because it just copies. But if I highlight the first 2 in the sequence, then I can complete the rest of the sequence. That's important in the exam that you remember that. Like the Monday, if you wanted that sequence to come down, you must highlight them both, not just the Monday, and then autofill the rest. Okay, so that's important in the exam. You can see ranges, so that would be B8 to D9. So that's the range over to there. If it was the purple only, it would be B8 to C9. That range there is going to be B8 to F8. So think about things as ranges as well as cells. Alignment, you can align things in a cell. You've got these 3 alignments that you would have normally, but because we've got a cell, we've also got these alignments too. So if you highlight some data, actually this one's probably better, the weeks, you can actually align them in the center of the cell, complete center of the cell, top of the cell, bottom of the cell, middle, keeps it all nice and succinct. So that's your alignment. Other areas is the fill handle, like we said, we've looked at that, and this is it, this little cross, and you're dragging it down, it looks like that. It's not going to do that. So it's not the white wider cross, it's the little black thin cross. And you can see if I do that, go over those, and it'll keep going and going. With regard to saving different formats, when you do the file save as, always use the browse in the exam because in the online exam it will expect you to save to the Z drive and open from the Z drive if you need to get anything. So your Z drive will show up here, and it will look like that with a Z where the C is. It may not have the OS, but it will be a Z in a bracket. Sometimes you'll get mixed up with the way that the question can be asked, and sometimes people think that the save as type is the actual name they're asking you to do. And a good example is that is when they ask for the 97 to 2003 workbook version. And sometimes people think that's the name, whereas in fact it's the save as type. So be really careful. This is the latest and the Excel SX. Okay, so you're thinking about where you're saving it, what type, file type, and the name could change as well in the exam, and then you'd hit save. If they don't ask you to save something in the exam, you can click on the answer and just move on. Okay, so I'll put some quick views there. As far as these little views here, these are the three here. You've got the full sheet, which we're in. You've got the page layout, which is really useful because if I bring it down, you can see how it fits on the page when you print it. It's not really good, is it? So we'd probably change that to a landscape. And then it's not brilliant either, so we might even change it to fit. But you can see the different views here. This last one here, the page break preview, this is where you can see that that page ends. And you can drag it over and go back to page there. And you can see now that I've included it all on that page, but it is quite small, so be aware of that. The next one we're looking at, if we just bring this one up a little bit. So what we're looking at here as far as the syllabus is concerned, is there's such a thing as formula and functions. So formula, when you use an equal sign, so you're typing in into the cell equal. When you put an equal cell sign in, it means you're doing a formula. And formulas mean that you're doing cell reference to cell reference. I'll just escape from that. So what it means in this one here, if we double click on this, you can open the cell up so you can see it. So put an equal sign in, and I'm timesing B3 by B2. So B2 times B3, and enter it in, and then you get the answer, and then you autofill across. So let's do that together. So we're using operators. These are your operators here. So if I'm doing equal B2, I can click on the cell or I can type it, times B3, enter the cell, there's my answer. If these weren't completed, then I go in there and I can autofill the little black cross all the way across to there. If that had a 6 in there, we added that in, and you can see how that automatically takes it on board. Take the 6 out, and you can see in there it's still got the formula, but it's not included the 6 until it goes in. So that's a nice quick way, so you do your formula in one cell and you autofill the rest. For example, if I did a sum in here, equals sum, double click, brought my sum up. If I wanted to sum those cells, I could highlight the range. Notice how up here or down here that it has a semicolon, sorry, a colon in the middle, not a semicolon, has a colon. The colon stands for everything in between. So if you were doing sheets, you would do a colon in the middle for every sheet in between one and the last one. In a range, you're doing the B2, everything in between to B10, and then finishing off the bracket and enter. If we did that in a sum with regard to operators, because that was a function, wasn't it, and not a formula, if we did that one plus that one plus, you can see how long formula takes. You would have to go on and on and on. So that's where functions come in. But if you're asked to do a formula, then you are only doing cell to cell, not a function. Let's get rid of that. Okay. So let's have a go at some of these formulas. Let's have a little practice. So bring this up. We're going to look at this one down here. So we're going to complete these by following this. So in B16, that's where you're going to put your answer using formula. You type in equals to let it know that you're doing a formula. Add B5 and B6. So you click on B5, use an add formula function there, operator, and then click on B6 and enter. No brackets, just straightforward cell to cell. On the second one, we've got in B17, divide B6 by B5, so equal. So we're dividing B6 by B5. So B6 comes first. The operator is divide, and then it's B5, and enter. This one is multiply, so we just put the equal sign in, multiply B6, so B6, use your above your 8 or on your number lock, your asterisk, and then we're going to do it by B5. And then we're going to add B3. You can see it up there, and enter. You'll notice there's no brackets, but if we did as it says here, if we pop some brackets around the B5 and the B3, what it does, the difference is that it adds these together first and then times that whole number by B6. So when you enter that in, it's completely different to the previous. If I undo, you can see it's 6406 when you just times B6 and B5 and then add the B3 on the end, up the 6 on the end. But if you do it with regard to brackets, then it adds those together and then it's a bigger sum, so you get a different answer. So be aware that with brackets, BODMAS, it can make a difference to how something looks. And you can see that I've left that there for you to look at another date. Be aware as well of some of the check-in errors. So when you put in a formula or a function later, but if you put in a formula, you can get these errors, so just be aware of them. So divide by 0 means that you divide it by a 0, literally, so we can't really do anything with that. A hash ref is where it's the reference to that cell is no longer there. So you've referenced a cell in your formula or your function, and somebody's come and maybe deleted it. So it's not applicable anymore. So reference to what? Name, it could be that doesn't recognize the way you've spelt the function if you're using a function. Null, 2 areas specified don't intersect. Value is when you can auto fill down and sometimes hit a label. Another one is the NA, it's not available, and the long hashes is that the cell isn't wide enough. Okay, so just be aware of some of those. Okay, moving on to some formula practice. Let's have a little go at this. So remember, we're going to do this. We'll work out the turnover in B4. So we click in the B4, type in a equal sign, and then we're going to multiply the price. So it could be a name of the cell rather than the 6, saying 6. And then we're going to use a multiply, remember our operators, and then we're going to times the sales and enter. And remember, you click in the corner, go to that little small black cross and drag and drop to J4. Okay, so we're going to do the second part now. So we're going to work out the difference. So there's the answer for the first one, the first instance we always call it. The rest is auto-filled. So there's our equal sign. We're going to subtract spending from profit. So profit comes first, minus spending, enter, and then drag and drop to J14. Okay, so that's, if you look now, if I do the control key below your shift key and the key just above, you put your thumb on the control key and tap the key above the tab key. It's like a little grave accent it's got 3 marks on it. You hold the control and keep tapping that grave accent above the tab key on your left hand side. You can see values and formula or functions that are going on behind the spreadsheet. So that might be worth knowing. Just have a quick look. Okay, moving on to worksheets. So what we're going to do here, open up multiple workbooks. So if you want to open 2 or 3 at the same time, if they're in a sequence, that means they're together in a line. You can click on the first one, use the shift for everything in between, and click on the last one in the list, and then open them up. If it's random, use a control key, and you can use these keys across the Microsoft Office functions and features quite a lot, as you'll find out as you go through things. Switching between worksheets, you've got the View tab and the Switch window. So it's like it is on the other here, where if you've got 2 workbooks open, you can switch between the 2 workbooks. If you're switching between the worksheets, then obviously you're just doing this. Okay, nothing more than that. Inserting rows and columns. So if you want to insert a row, if you're going across. So if we were going to, let's just bring it up a little bit. If I was going to insert a row in here, stay in the editing area, that's the numbers. You can right click and you can insert, and the row automatically goes above, so everything moves down to incorporate it. If you're putting a column in, it's the same thing. So you point down at it with black arrow, insert, and the column will move over, and the one you're inserting will go in front of it. Okay, so just remember that if you're asked to do that in exam, you're inserting, you're moving that one to the right, and your new one's coming in. If you're doing a row, you'll move it. If you're inserting, you're moving that one down and inserting that above or in front again. So you could use in front for both. Just explain it and then undo. Okay, so it's editing in the grey area, they call it. Inserting and deleting worksheets. If you wanted to insert a worksheet in a particular place, just like we've just done, you would right click and use that insert, and that would insert in front of the sheet I've just right clicked on. To delete it, right click and delete the sheet. If you're just putting in a new sheet, you can use the plus at the end, and that will just put it in at the end. But if you want it in a particular place, if you right click and it will go in front of this, the formula practice, if I insert, okay, it jumps in front, and then I can right click and delete. If you want to rename it, you can double click on it, and then you could type in there whatever you want and rename it. Click away and it's named. Okay, so back to our worksheets. You can do a right click and you've got tab colors, useful if you wanted to highlight a particular sheet with red or something that you were interested in showing, and that's your color and renaming. This copy, move and right click on the sheet. So what we can do, you can move within a workbook and you can move to another workbook. So the first thing I'm going to do is just going to open up the other workbook, the link demo chart. So I've got another one open. Okay, and I'm going to switch. Remember we had this view and we had this switch window. So I'm going to switch this way now back to my Excel demo. So if I wanted to move this within this worksheet, I can just grab it and shift it along. I can move it in front of the formula practice. Grab it again and move it back to after formula practice. I can right click and I can move it this way as well. So if I'm doing a move, I don't tick the create a copy and I can just move it to somewhere in here. So I could move it so it's in front of the before the sheet formula practice, and okay, and that moves it. If I want to do a copy, I can use the same feature and I click on the create copy, and then I could create a copy again in front of the formula practice. Now we've got 2. Notice how it has the number 2 on it. So no worksheet can have the same name. So I'll put in a 2, 3, 4, etc. If you were going to copy a sheet manually, if I click this worksheet, if you hold the control key down and drag and drop, you can continue to do that and it will continue to give it a number. So what you can do is you've got the same sheet and you want to duplicate it and change it only slightly, you can use that feature to do that. And then we can right click and delete. So make sure you feel okay with this sort of thing and you feel comfortable. Remember the final one, if we go right click onto the worksheet, move or copy, we can go to a different book. We're in this book, we have the option of going to a brand new book. So what might happen is you might have something you just want to send that one sheet to somebody, not the rest. So you can move it into a new book and name it. Or if you've got another one open, you can move it into that one and you can move it or copy it depending on what you want to do. So if you're okay, and I've done a copy, there's my move. That's the one I had, and that's the sheet that's gone in. So I can go back to my Excel demo. Okay, so just have a little play with that. Make sure you feel comfortable with it and everything's fine. With regard to hiding, you can right click and hide a row, and then you'll see this feature, see the little double arrow. You can either use that and drag, or you can highlight the rows around the row that's hidden. So the 4 and the 6, by right clicking and hide, it will show 5. So if you've got a number of rows hidden, 4, 5, 6 and 7 hidden, then I'd have to pick up the 8 and the 9. Oh, sorry, 3 to 8, and then unhide, and it brings more back in again. Same with the column. I hide, and then if I unhide, there it is, coming back in, or right click and unhide. Okay. Then when we've got a couple of other features called find and replace and sort, and we've had these features in the Word, if you've done Word with us before. So find and replace can be used just like it is in Word. On the Home tab, you've got this drop down here and the replace features there. So you can still have a word that you want to change throughout your workbook, and so you're finding a word and it might be let's say delete, and you could replace with remove. And then if you find, you can find them all and you can get, you know how many, you've got 2 cells it's found. You could replace them all, or you could just find next. So it will take you to it, and there it's coming up at the top, and then you can deal with it. So find and replace exactly the same as when you've used it before. And sort, if you sort I'll see if I can sort, click in here, see if we can sort this from ascending, and you can see that it's done that, and if I do it descending, it's put it all the way back again. So clicking in one area and using the sort will work. Let's undo that, so we're back to where we were. And then you can see there's a go-to. So Control and G will take you to a particular cell, table, and find certain things. So you might want to use that Control and G. Okay, so it's moving on. We covered all of that. This one here, we're going to look at Page Setup, the launcher, the Layout tab, Print and Titles, which is quite a good feature, Margins when you customize them, selecting your print area, Scale to fit, that means scale to fit on a page. Remember, we can use the page layout version, and we can see how it sits on a page. Some grid lines, there it is on a page, quite big. Okay, go back to normal for now. Give it a minute. And then headers and footers and things like that. Okay, grid lines is on there too. So it's all in the page layout area. So we click on page layout. So we've got a launcher here. The launcher will bring up the dialog box that will do a lot of different things in there. As you can see, page, margins, headers, footers, everything. You can also get the things from these features here from the ribbon in most cases. So we've got print titles. This is your print titles area. What print titles does, if I hover on it, is you choose the rows that you want, and they're usually heading rows, like you've got A1 and B1, so you've got budget, Jan, Feb, March, and it automatically prints those on every new page. So if you've got quite a lot of data and you want the titles across each page automatically this is the one that will do it. So to use it, you would click on it and click in the rows to repeat. Mine's got one in, so I'm going to delete that. And I want to repeat these rows. So I point at the row, you'll see the hash going around it. You see something drop in there. This time it's gone in as a print titles. Same thing, then OK, and that's the job done. You don't see it happen on screen or in the exam, you just know that you've done it. So when you print, see if we can get a print preview, that might help. So we're going to print. Accessing print, there's our print preview, so we can see that if we were going to do that sheet, it's not going to do it on there, but it would come out as the headings only. So that's print titles. Margins, go into the margins here, and you've got the customized margins. So be really careful that you make sure you make the changes to the right ones. Left and right are there. They're pretty obvious when you see them visually, but not always when you just go in an exam and just type them in. So make sure you're doing the right ones with all of that extra effort. The printing area, so once it's stopped, settles down, we'll look at this one. So there might be a particular area that you want to print, and the purple, I've done it in purple just for demonstration. So if we click on there and we set that print preview area, if we try and now look at it on a print preview, you can see that it just picks up that area only. And then you would have to clear it if you decided that you didn't want it while it's highlighted, okay, to remove it. With regard to scale, you've got scaling going on here. You've got grid lines here. That's the next one along. So scaling, if we look at this on a page layout, use the middle feature down here. There we go. Let's bring it down a little bit so you can see. So if we use page to fit, it's fitting 1 wide and 2 high. So if we took that to 1, that's going to take a lot of doing. Not happy. But there it is. It's all on 1. It gets tinier and tinier. If we did it as automatic, and you can see the scale is only 54% at the moment. Bear with it. And then on here, automatic, the scale starts to go up, and it's 55%. It's gone on to more than 1 page. It's gone over as well, as you can see there. So you can see, and then if we did the scale up, it gets bigger and it starts spreading itself out. The grid lines that you see, if I take them off, they disappear off the sheet. So if you want them on the printout, you need to have them ticked on the screen, on the print. Does that make sense? Good. And then headings won't count in this. So we've looked across here, we've got the orientations, we've got it in landscape at the moment. You've got paper size, which is generally usually A4. You're setting your print area. You've got your print titles, your scale, fit to scale, or scale to fit. If you click in there, you've also got the old way of looking at it, which is to fit 1 and 1 tall, so you could use that one as well. Then you've got the headers and footers. In here you've got headers and footers, but if we cancel that and come down here, there's your left, there's your center, and there's your right section, and you also have one at the bottom too. So you might be asked to, when you click in a header or footer, you can see the design tab comes up. You've got page numbers, you've got file paths, up here you might have the date back in there and find your current date. So all of those things are automated features, and you can see them all there if we bring them up. And that's all in the headers. So remember, headers and footers have sections. If you're in the full normal view in an exam and you want to get to the headers and footers quickly, you can move to the page layout to do that. It's quite acceptable to make those changes. Okay, so we're going to move on from printing. you know that file, print. They're never going to ask you to actually print anything in an exam, but it's useful to know how to use things as we have. Brings us on to formatting now. Formatting is quite a big area in spreadsheets. People don't normally think it has a lot, but it can look really good. There's lots of areas we need to look at here. Let's make sure we can see them all. So we've got inserting, deleting cells, rows and columns. We've had a look at that. You can put in cells, so you could insert highlighted, insert cell and shift the cells down. So you can insert cells like that. You can obviously do column widths. If you right click on a column in the grey area at the top, you've got a width, and you could type in a particular one. In a row, right click, you've got row height as well. You've got borders. So the thing you've got to use escape, stuck. If you've got a border and you wanted, if we're going to do this area in a border, we've got our usual border here. And we can go to more borders or all borders, they're all up there anyway. So you could have outline inside and out, and then you could apply a colour. However, if you pick the colour, notice it's not been applied. In Word, it automatically gets applied. In Excel, you have to actually apply it on there like a sample. Okay, so you can actually see it. You can make it a bit thicker there as well. Then OK, and then that border will come on. We have things that are like wrap. So this text here is called truncated. So in other words, you're not seeing the full data clearly, and that's considered as very inappropriate on Excel. So if you highlight that row, we can wrap it using the wrap text up here, and it wraps extra long text into multiple lines. So you can see it all, and you can see what happens when you do it. And this is good if you've got lots of headings going across the top. You've got a really long heading. You do not want your spreadsheet going all the way down into the Zs, etc., column-wise. So you have to keep scrolling back and forth. Table styles are easy as well. If you highlight a particular area and you apply a table style, so if you go into here and into the drop-down for your format as table, and you can apply to a particular setting. I've just selected that, and then that applies just there. You could do it to the whole of your table, obviously, it would make more sense. Rotating text and alignment. So you've got this feature here. So if we drop down, rotate up, rotate down, etc. So you've got that. Freezing panes is very useful. So in the exam, if you click in a cell and you go to view and you drop down freeze panes, you can just freeze the top row automatically wherever you've clicked. So you click on the top row, you can see that that's froze that row, top row. Take it off, go back in and unfreeze. If, however, you wanted to freeze 3, 2 and 1, so everything above 4, you'd have to select the 4 row and do the freeze on the freeze panes, and then you can see that everything above the 4 stays still and freeze. If you wanted the first column, you've got that option of freeze first column, and that would freeze that way. If, however, as you did before, you wanted to freeze everything before C, you highlighted C and do the freeze, oops, just the normal freeze, not the freeze column, and then that one would work. If, however, you wanted to freeze both a column and a heading, and the normal place would be in A1, so you wanted to, sorry, B1, B2, so you wanted to keep row 1 and A. So that's the intersecting one. B2 would be the intersecting one. If you had headings down here, they would stay still, and the headings across would stay still. And when you freeze that, you can go that way and you can go that way. So Format Painter, this one here, I've got this in Arial 16, bold and italic. If I copy that by one click, I can apply it to something else and then it goes off. If I want to do it more than once, double click it, and then I can do it in a number of places and then click off when I'm finished. So that's your Format Painter. And remember, Format Painter copies formatting only. It's nothing to do with text or numbers, the formatting that's applied. Zoom, nice and straightforward. We've got Zoom. If you were asked to do Zoom, maybe 101, trying to fix that, believe me, it's not easy. Go to the View tab and use this Zoom. So this Zoom will allow you to type in particular sizes, and it's a lot easier to use than trying to slide back and forth. Before we leave this sheet, we're going to look at some formatting. So if I just change these numbers, oops, and go into the home, let's just make them numbers. So drop that down, let's put it on number. Okay, so bring it up for you a little bit, zoom. So these numbers here, if you were asked to make these thousands, this is the feature here, the comma style. So format with a thousands separator is the language they use. Click on and it puts 1,000 comma in if applicable. Obviously that's not in 1,000. So that's that feature there, comma style. You've got lots of other ones. You've got currency, you've got general, nothing, number, accounting. This one you've got dates. So you can have short date, you can have a long date. So you can see the difference going on there. So a lot of formatting going along here. And then your percentages, which are just popped here. So you could pop that over there and do some percentages. Okay. Then you've got in this one with the decimal, you can change the decimal places as well of the figures that you've got. So this is about changing that, and it can all be done through the format cells, exactly the same place, has all of that going on there if that's the way you've used it in the past. So that's your formatting all here. Okay, let's move on to your next one. So you've got some formatting practice here. We've got some features that I may not have mentioned. Let's just have a quick look. So remember wrapping, you've got this one and you've got your wrap text. And then you could just bring it out slightly because only wrap, if there's an S missing or something, then it won't wrap that exactly. You've got the apply your merge and center. Merge and center, you go across the cell and it's this little feature here. So in the past, what you would do is you would merge that first using the format cells, merging the cells, and then center. But in this one, all you do is highlight the area you want to merge and center, the cell range, click on that, and it does it for you. So nice little tool. Make sure you use it when they ask for it. Currency format to B4. These are not wide enough to remember the error it told you. It's got B4 to A17. Oh, B4 to A17. And then you've got the currency. So you can keep on trying these. Auto fit, do you remember auto fit in a column? I did it earlier. So it's like that, auto fit. And when these were too small, auto fit, too little in the junction there, double click and it opens it up to fit automatically. Do you remember the 1,000 separators on A22? Got it here. Do you remember that? Little columns for it. If I put them back to general and then you apply it, you can see the difference there. Freezing rows, remember if you're freezing A1 and A3, A1 to A3, you go below A3 and then you can go into the view and you can freeze panes. And then the final one, applying shading to your choice, because we didn't do this. Let's do it there. And remember on your home tab, you have shading, which will be fill. So any shading is going to be your fill. And you can just apply any shading that you wish. So that's most of the formatting covered there. And that takes us then on to functions.